Assalamu alaikum. Now we are doing the exercise of lesson number 2 from class 6. Hulu baloo, loud noise, hangama, commotion, disturbance, hulchal, hilarious, amusing, mazahiya, advent, arrival, amad, suspected, guess, andesha, slammed, to shut, forcefully, band karna, aroused, awakened, bedar hona, intuitively, instinctively, khud ba khud, incomparable, matchless, बेमिसाल. Gruffly, harshly, सख्ती से, whooping, shouting aloud, चीखना, yanked, pulled, खींचना, gripped, to hold tightly, गिरफ्त, flung, threw, फेंका, holster, holder, चमड़े की थैली, attic, space in a roof, बालाखाना, deserters, leave the army, armed force without permission, भगोड़े, engraver, a person with who cut designs on metal, wood, stones, etc. नक्श लगा करने वाला. Question answers. Who was the writer of the story of the night the ghost got in? James Thurber was the writer of the story The Night the Ghost Got In. Where does the story take place? The story takes place at the narrator's house at 1:15 a.m. What the narrator was doing? He was taking bath when he heard the footsteps. Who was at home? Narrator, his mother, brother, Herman, and his grandfather. What did the narrator think the sound was? At first he thought it was his father or brother Roy, next as a burglar, and finally confirmed that it was a ghost. Who were narrator's neighbors? The narrator's neighbors were Mr. Bodwell and his wife. How did Bodwell react when a shoe was thrown into their house? Mr. Bodwell was shouting when a shoe was thrown into their house. What did the Bodwell think when they heard the mother shout? Bodwell thought that there were burglars in their house. Why did Herman and the author slam the doors? Because they were scared and they thought that someone was coming up the stairs. Were the policemen willing to leave the house? No, the policemen were not willing to leave the house. True, false. The slamming of the doors aroused the mother. True, the policemen were willing to leave the house. False, a reporter was a thin-faced, wispy man. True, Mr. Bodwell was the narrator's neighbor. True, the writer was braver than Herman. True. Antonyms: word opposite, advent, departure, comparable, incomparable, conclusion, beginning, grabbed, released, hullabaloo, peace or silence, slamming, opening, suspected, trusted, upstairs, downstairs, yanked, pushed, yelling, whisper, attic, bass band, gruffly, politely, indignantly, happily. MCQs: the speaker believes there is a ghost in their house because he heard footsteps. When the mother hears the footsteps, she believes that robbers have broken in. How does the mother get the neighbors to help? She throws a shoe through their window. The grandfather shoots the policeman because he is imagining that they are army men. When the speaker tells the reporter that there is a ghost in the house, the reporter doesn't believe him. A cartoon story, Calvin. The cartoon script describes a funny incident that happens in a Calvin's class. Calvin is taking a test and does not want to write. So he asks his friend Susie whether he can copy them from her paper. When she says no, he thinks of a clever idea. He takes out a telescope and tries to look at her paper. The teacher, however, notices this and calls out angrily to him. This incident shows how imaginative and clever Calvin is. Describe the Calvin character in a few sentences. So Calvin is an intelligent 6-year-old boy who is not really successful at school. He is, however, very clever and has an excellent imagination. He thinks of original and new ideas to solve his problem. He is very funny too. Sentences: hilarious, I like hilarious story. Commotion, she doesn't like commotion. Advent, my cousin Advent in the evening. Suspected, I suspected that it will rain in the evening. Slammed, I slammed the door. Aroused, I aroused at 6 a.m. Intuitively, I do my work intuitively. Incomparable, Quaid-e-Azam's personality was incomparable. Yanked, she yanked the rope forcefully. Gripped, the dog gripped the bone because he was hungry. Fill in the blank. The grandfather was sleeping in the attic. A reporter was a thin-faced, wispy man. Grandfather grabbed the officer's gun from its holster. Mr. Bodwell called the police. Herman was the brother of the writer. Summary: The author James Thurber heard the strange footsteps at the downstairs. At first, he thought it was his father or his brother Roy, next as a burglar, and finally confirmed that it was a ghost. The writer and his brother Herman were scared and slammed the doors at upstairs. When their mother woke up, she asked her neighbor Broadwell to call the police. The police entered by breaking the glass of front doors. The policeman informed author's mother that there were no sign of anything. When the police entered the attic, his grandfather started shooting at them. Finally, James comes to the conclusion that the sound was coming from actually was his grandfather. Thanks.